Welcome back, builders. Today I want to show you a quick little guide about the field kitchen. It is a building that I feel like a lot of people really underestimate. I think that comes from the fact that the crude workshop is kind of the equivalent for materials, and for most of us, I think one of the early game goals is to get out of the crude workshop for as many materials as we can, because it's very inefficient. You can only have two people working there. There's various reasons why you don't want to just stay on a crude workshop. And I think that we feel that it's the same for the field kitchen, and I want to argue that the field kitchen's a lot better than you may be giving it credit for. First of all, the field kitchen is not something you start with. The field kitchen unlocks at level 11, and it's in the Obsidian Archive tree of upgrades. You're going to be going down that anyways because it's the tree that increases your meta progression and unlocks various different features of the game. I would say if you're just starting off, one of the first things you want to make sure to beeline is the field kitchen. When you ding 11, you want to be ready to go to unlock that. We can see here that it's an essential building, so you will start with it on every single map. You do not have to find it in your recipe pool. That's a big bonus. That means you can count on it. When you're choosing your starting bonuses or your starting caravans, you could decide, hey, I'm going to take the extra meat because I know I can make it into jerky, or vice versa for various other recipes. As you can see here, it can produce a no-star jerky, porridge, biscuit, and pickled goods. I'm going to bring you into a map, and we're going to look at this in a little bit more detail. Okay, and I'm in a new settlement, just getting started. I've popped my first couple glades, got my initial setup down. I've got my field kitchen here. Now, I've had to stop working it because I need some rainwater to finish some events, but we can look at it here. One thing to note is that the jerky is something you can easily start with extra meat. And you could just say, hey, I'm going to start with the extra meat. I'm going to immediately turn it into jerky for just a little bit of wood, or maybe use a little bit of your initial coal. And you could turn 8 meat into 10 jerky. And that's going to be the theme across all these. They're not the most efficient thing in the world, but every single one of them gains more food than you put into it. Plus, you're going to get the resolve bonus for people that like it. Plus, you can turn things that normally you couldn't eat into things that you can eat. Like you can take herbs and some water, and you can turn that into porridge. Porridge is one of the real big ones. Most maps are going to have one of these 4: grain, vegetables, mushrooms, or herbs. And you can take that and you can turn it into porridge. Humans and foxes like that. It's a super efficient food. It also means that if you have a regular farm, you can do grain and vegetables. If you get the herb farm, you can do herbs. If you're growing mushrooms or chopping things that give you mushrooms, very available. Same thing with jerky. Generally speaking, you have one or the other, or you can get some, and you can turn that into jerky. It requires 2 people to work here, so it's not a huge building. But I think the magic really happens once you turn on your water. Once you've got that water put in there and you can turn it on, step 1 gives you production speed plus 50%. So it's like having a third person here for your overall production. But the magic really happens here at the second level with the reliability. Increase the chance for extra production by 25%. And that's just from here. That'll stack with any meta progression you have, or any other cornerstones, or anything else that you've got that's giving you chance for extra production. And stacking that is really good, because while 8 meat for 10 jerky is okay, 8 meat for 20 jerky is excellent. Same thing for porridge. Getting that early water is really vital. Not only to run your engine, which, being a food building, is going to want drizzle water. Drizzle water is not going to be used for things that aren't food, generally speaking. Some of the buildings have other recipes, but that's the main purpose. You'll also notice that the drizzle water is the most efficient. It takes 10 to make porridge instead of 12 or 14 for clearance and storm, respectively. This can be huge. If you roll really bad on your opening buildings, so on this map, I got pretty good choices, but none of them gave me extra food types. So I would have no way to be more efficient. And by starting resources, I got eggs, more eggs. I did get some meat, and I got more eggs. So I don't really have a ton of choices. So I'm probably actually going to take this and I'm going to immediately go in and start in on that meat, because that's going to be the most efficient one. I can grab the meat, I can tell them not to eat it raw, and I can turn that into jerky. Now, I didn't end up with a race this time around that likes that, but they'll still eat it even if it's not one of their favorite foods. And I would prefer them eat something I can produce a little more efficiently than eat the raw food. Now, there is an argument to be made that maybe you want to turn off using your consumption control advanced foods, and you only want to turn it on when you're going to be able to cross the threshold and start getting reputation points. That's a viable way to do things. It depends on your circumstance. Are you hurting for food? Like right now in my situation, I was chopping very heavily, and I had an order that wanted me to break into 2 glades and complete glade events, so I was doing something out of the ordinary, not what you generally want to do. But look at where I'm at. I got 3 eggs and 17 mushrooms. That's not a good place to be. So I'm going to actually turn on porridge. I'm going to tell them you can use any kind of water that you want. And we are going to at least take our mushrooms and turn them into porridge. That'll give me 4 extra meals out of that. This can be vital. Starving is not good. Depending on your race, they can tolerate starvation various amounts. When they've decided they're going to starve, they leave. So you can hit a cascading effect where your foxes are starving, so they start leaving, so you're leaving jobs open, so you're not getting the food that you need to feed people. You don't want to be in that situation, and the field kitchen is the quiet little hero that keeps you out of that. So I hope I've made a good argument here for why you should be at least heavily considering if a field kitchen is worth it in your opening. I think its value increases when you have foxes, because in the early game, you generally don't have a lot of jobs for foxes. So an early rain collector, I actually plopped this down mainly because I needed some resolve for the first storm. My foxes were not happy. And by plopping my 2 out of 3 in here for that extra 5 resolve for being happy with their work job, kept them out of the negatives for that first storm. So because I did that, I had the water anyways. So there's another reason that, hey, maybe you want to drop the kitchen and use that water for something, because you're probably not going to be running a ton of engines in the early game. I'm not going to be able to keep these in here full time. I'm going to need them to go do other things. So far on this map, I haven't found a geyser, so I don't have any easy source of that. But it gave them something to do that gave resolve and was useful, and now I can take that and turn it into food. Another thing you should consider is any recipe that uses things that are not food and turns them into food is valuable, because I can't eat a container. But if I have extra containers from a cornerstone, or maybe I'm just producing them for some other reason, you can turn that into food. You can eat 3 jars essentially with this recipe. And it only gets more efficient when you have better buildings. But when you're just starting out and you don't have a choice, you should consider the field kitchen. So I hope, if nothing else from this, you realize how important the lunch ladies are. That it's an unsung job that somebody's got to do, and they keep us fed. If this tip was helpful for you, I appreciate you taking the time to watch it, and I'll see you later, builders.